Hello there, Supatyava, dear friends of the Dhamma. Welcome back to the Dhamma school, the Dhamma of the Buddha, the teachings of the Buddha. Our question was, how can we get into the practice of Satipatthana? Then the Buddha proclaimed that Ānapāna sati Samādhi bhikkave ekadhammo bhavito bahulikato chattaro satipatthāne paripuriti. Chattaro satipatthāna bhavita bahulikata satta bujjange paripurenti. Satta bujjanga bhavita bahulikata vijja vimuttin paripurenti. Which means practitioners' continuous and relentless practice of this unique phenomenon, Ānapāna sati Samādhi, fulfills the four aspects of Satipatthana. Continuous and relentless practice of the four aspects of Satipatthana fulfills the seven bujjanga. Continuous and relentless practice of the seven bujjanga fulfills vijja vimuttin, absolute liberation from mental impurities accompanied by enlightenment. Practically, continuous and relentless practice of this unique phenomenon, Ānapāna sati Samādhi, empowers and fulfills the four aspects of Satipatthana, the seven bujjanga, and all 37 requisites of vijja vimutti. Without practicing this unique phenomenon, Ānapāna sati Samādhi, introduced by the Buddha, it is impossible to empower the four aspects of Satipatthana, the seven bujjanga, or any other supportive factor in a manner that fulfills vijja vimutti. Therefore, Ānapāna sati Samādhi is the unique phenomenon that we need to practice to empower and fulfill the four aspects of Satipatthana. Now the question is, how can we get into the practice of this unique phenomenon, Ānapāna sati Samādhi? Āna means to associate, Pāna means to dissociate from. Sati is the new measure introduced by the Buddha. Samādhi means concentration. Then we must concentrate on associating and dissociating from, compatible with the law of cause and effect and the principle of existential indebtedness. That process is called Ānapāna sati Samādhi. Then one could ask, what is to be associated? And what is to be dissociated from? Is there any related explanation or theory? Yes, of course. There's a great theory known as Sevitabba Asevitabba Dhamma Pariyaya. The process of Āna and Pāna is explained based on this theory. In this sutta, the Buddha expounded what must be associated and what must be dissociated from. Sevitabba means to associate. Asevitabba means to dissociate from. Dhamma means intentions. Dhamma pariyaya means range of theories about intentions. Dhamma means intentions. We already know that raga, dosa and moha are the root of unwholesomeness, the root of impurity in Magadhi known as akusala moolan, and araga, adosa and amoha are the root of wholesomeness, the root of purity, in Magadhi known as kusala moolan. The new measure called Sati must be applied to our intentions. Sati means appreciation of a thought object against the law of cause and effect and the principle of existential indebtedness. Practically, Sati works as a filter. We must filter all our intentions that are about to emanate from the mind door. The question is, how to filter them? The Buddha said, Akusala Dhamma abhivaddanti, kusala Dhamma parihayanti. Abhi means deep or powerful. Vaddanti means growing, growth. Parihayanti means regression or decline. If an intention leads to advancement or progression of impurity and the erosion of purity, that intention must be dissociated from. That is Pāna. That is asevitabba. That is Pasala. That is an unwise intention. That is the unwise company. There is a simultaneous regression or decline of purity when impurity is advanced. And then the Buddha said, Kusala Dhamma abhivaddanti, akusala Dhamma parihayanti. If an intention leads to advancement or progression of purity and the erosion of impurity, that intention must be associated. That is Āna. That is Sevitabba. That is Assa. That is wise intention. That is the wise company. This theory is not about our respiratory system or breathing, but our intentions, our cognition. Therefore, Āna Sati Samādhi introduced by the Buddha is a full-fledged cognitive process. Now let's have a look at the great explanation of Āna Sati Samādhi to get a better idea about what must be associated and what must be dissociated from. This sutta is called Great Rāhulowada Sutta. The Buddha taught 7-year-old Bhikku Rahula how to practice Āna-Pāna-Sati Samādhi in a very simple way. Mettan Rahula bhavanan bhavehi, mettan hite Rahula bhavanan bhavayutu, yo vyapadu so pahissati. Mettan means loving kindness, universal benevolence. Practically, unconditional true love. Vyapadu means aversion. The Buddha said, Rahula, practice loving kindness. Rahula, one must dissociate from aversion by practicing loving kindness. What is the best time to practice loving kindness? Early in the morning or late evening? If we follow Sati, the law of cause and effect and the principle of existential indebtedness, loving kindness must be practiced then and there to dissociate from anger that is about to arise. Then one could ask, for how long must we practice loving kindness? I mean, how much time is available to dissociate from the anger that is about to arise? The Buddha said, Gandhuhana mattampi metta chittan bhaviya. Practicing of loving kindness in the space of smelling fragrance. Practically, loving kindness must be surfaced then and there in a trice as the antidote to supersede anger that is about to raise its head. The next question is, what happens if we don't practice loving kindness then and there in a trice to dissociate from anger that is about to arise? Naturally, anger arises. Such kind of unpleasant emotional agitation occurs. And there, in Magadhi known as Patiga Anusaya, a new corruption of aversion arises. Anusaya means new corruption. New corruptions deposit in our mind. Then we call them asava, past corruptions. So, metta anussati. Anu means new corruptions. Metta, we practice loving kindness to dissociate from new corruption of aversion. Sati, following the law of cause and effect and the principle of existential indebtedness. This process is called metta anussati. Metta anussati empowers Āna, Pāna, Sati, Samādhi. And then the Buddha said, Karunan Rāhula bhavanan bhavehi karunan hite Rāhula bhavanan bhavayuto ya vihesa sa pahissati. Karunan is generally known as compassion. But compassion for what? The term karunan is made up of two words, karu plus nan. Karu means obstacles, nan means ending or removing. Then karunan means caring by removing obstacles on the path to Nibbana. Vihesa means placing obstacles on the path to Nibbana. The Buddha said, Rahula practice karuna. Rahula, one must dissociate from vihesa by practicing karuna. And then the Buddha said, Muditan Rahula bhavanan bhavehi muditan hite Rahula bhavanan bhavayuto ya arati sa pahissati. Muditan means appreciative joy. Arati means jealousy. Rahula practice appreciative joy. Rahula, one must dissociate from jealousy by practicing appreciative joy. And then, Upekkan Rahula bhavanan bhavehi, upekkan hite Rahula bhavanan bhavayuto, yo patigo so pahisati. Upekkan means equanimity. Patigo means self-pity. Rahula practice equanimity. Rahula, one must dissociate from self-pity by practicing equanimity. Correct practice of loving kindness fulfills the 4 Arya qualities, in English known as the 4 divine abodes. Mettan, Karunan, Muditan and Upekkan. And then the Buddha said, Asubhan Rahula bhavanan bhavehi, asubhan hite Rahula bhavanan bhavayuto, yo ragu so pahisati. Asubhan means the abandonment or the absence of attractive nature. Rago means pleasantness, passion, or greed, etc. Rahula practice Asubhan. Rahula, one must dissociate from Ragu by practicing Asubhan. My question is, what happens if we don't practice Asubhan then and there in a trice to dissociate from Ragu that is about to arise? Naturally, Ragu arises. Such kind of pleasant, emotional excitement occurs. And there, in Magadhi known as Tanha Anusaya, a new corruption of craving arises. Asubha Anussati. Anu means new corruption. Asubha, we practice Asubha to dissociate from new corruption of craving, Sati, following the law of cause and effect and the principle of existential indebtedness. This process is called Asubha Anussati. Asubha Anussati and Metta Anussati are Samato strategies to purify our emotional domain, in Magadhi known as Chitta. And then the Buddha taught 7-year-old Bhikku Rahula the Vipassana, practically how to purify the cognitive domain. Anicca sanyan Rahula bhavanan bhavehi, anicca sanyan hite Rahula bhavanan bhavayoto, yo asmi mano so pahisati. Anicca sanyan means the perception of the unsustainability of one's innate mental desire. Asmimano means the notion of egocentric I, self. Rahula practice anicca sanyan. Rahula, one must dissociate from the notion of egocentric I by practicing the perception of the unsustainability of one's innate mental desire. In other words, associating 3 characteristics of nature known as tilakkana to dissociate from intense delusion or cognitive dissonance. Associating anicca nature of the perception to dissociate from nicca nature of the perception. Associating dukkha nature of the perception to dissociate from sukha nature of the perception. Associating anatta nature of the perception to dissociate from atta nature of the perception. Practically, associating reality to dissociate from false imagination that is about to raise its head. Now the question is, how much time is available to dissociate from the notion of egocentric I that is about to arise? I mean, for how long must we practice the perception of the unsustainability of one's innate mental desire? The Buddha said, Achara sanghata mattampi anicca sanyan bhavi. Practicing of the perception of the unsustainability of one's innate mental desire in a flash. Dissociation from unwholesome intention occurs simultaneously with the association of wholesome intention. As darkness disappears simultaneously with the appearance of sunlight. The next question is, what happens if we don't practice the perception of the unsustainability of one's innate mental desire, then and there in a flash, to dissociate from the notion of egocentric I that is about to raise its head? Naturally, moha arises, cognitive dissonance occurs, and there, in Magadhi known as avidya anusaya, a new corruption of ignorance arises. The practice of vipassana is known as marana anussati. Marana means death. Conventionally, death means the end of a life of a person. But the end of a life of an intention also can be called death. Here, in particular, death means the eradication of misperception of nicca sukha atta by associating the perception of anicca dukkha anatta. That is called death. We practice vipassana to dissociate from new corruption of ignorance, anu, sati, following the law of cause and effect and the principle of existential indebtedness. This process is called marana anussati. What would be the result of correct practice of samatha in tandem with vipassana? the result is called Buddha Anussati. Buddha Anussati. Buddha means the eradication of defiled mental properties, in Magadhi known as Bahu, Kama Bahu, Rupa Bahu, Arupa Bahu. Anu means new corruptions. Sati is the new measure introduced by the Buddha. Then Buddha Anussati means the eradication of defiled mental properties through dissociation from new corruptions compatible with the law of cause and effect and the principle of existential indebtedness. This process is called Buddha Anussati. Buddha Anussati must be the result of correct practice of samatha in tandem with vipassana. Then Asubha Anussati, Metta Anussati, Marana Anussati and Buddha Anussati. These four practices are called in Magadhi Chatura Rakka. Chatu means four, Arakka means protections. Four protections or four protective reflections or four protective strategies to eradicate mental impurities. Four protections, because these four practices protect or shield our mind from mental impurities. It is captured in a famous verse. Buddhanussati mettacha asubhang maranassati iti ima chaturarakka bhikku bhaviya silava. Which means Buddhanussati, Mettanussati, Asubhanussati and Marananussati. These four practices ensure triple virtuous conduct in a practitioner. The practice of four protections as samatha in tandem with vipassana empowers Ānapāna-sati Samādhi, and then Ānapāna-sati Samādhi fulfills the four aspects of Satipatthāna. Then the Buddha said, Ānapāna-satin Rāhula bhavanan bhavehi Ānapāna-satihite Rāhula bhavita bahulikata mahappalahoti mahanisansa. Rahula practiced Ānapāna-sati, which means Rahula associate and dissociate from, following the law of cause and effect and the principle of existential indebtedness. Continuous and relentless practice of Ānapāna-sati brings great benefits. If we concentrate to dissociate from unwholesome intentions by associating wholesome intentions compatible with the law of cause and effect and the principle of existential indebtedness, that process is called Ānapāna-sati Samādhi. Ānapāna-sati Samādhi introduced by the Buddha is a full-fledged cognitive process that purifies our emotional domain as well as cognitive domain then and there in a trice. Now it is obvious that the Buddha taught 7-year-old Bhikku Rahula nothing other than the practice of 4 protections. In other words, the Buddha taught 7-year-old Bhikku Rahula nothing other than the duality, which he discovered sitting under that ficus tree. Pāna Sati Samādhi is the unique phenomenon that we need to practice to attain Vijja Vimutti, absolute liberation from mental impurities accompanied by enlightenment. That is why the Buddha proclaimed that Asevana cha balanan panditanam cha sevana, because it is the path to attain Sotapannahood. Asevana cha balanan panditanam cha sevana, because it is the path to attain Sakadagamihood. Asevana cha balanan panditanam cha sevana, because it is the path to attain Anagamihood. Asevana cha balanan panditanam cha sevana, because it is the path to attain Arahantahood. Now we have a better idea that what must be associated and what must be dissociated from. The Buddha has given an interesting example to explain the process of Āna and Pāna. An unwholesome intention that is about to arise must be dissociated from by associating a wholesome intention. As much as a carpenter drives out a large peg in a wood board by using a thin peg. Large peg, in Magadhi known as Olarikan Ani, is the unwholesome intention. Thin peg, in Magadhi known as Sukuman Ani, is the wholesome intention. My next question is, if we practice this unique phenomenon of Āna Sati Samādhi correctly as samattu in tandem with vipassana to purify our emotional domain as well as cognitive domain then and there in a trice, what remains to be purified by inhaling oxygen and exhaling carbon dioxide? What is the relationship of our respiratory system or breathing with the law of Pati Icca San Uppada? Harsh reality is breathing meditation is the path to the state of Brahma and has nothing to do with the state of Nibbana discovered and taught by the Buddha. Anyway, my last question is, what is Kāye Kāya Anupassi Viharati? Alright, let's continue our discussion in our next lesson. Suvapatveva everyone.